Dr. Jessica Miller's coffee had long gone cold, forgotten among the constellation of empty energy drink cans littering her desk at the Xena Communication Division's headquarters. The clock on her monitor blinked 3:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but she barely noticed. After 15 years of scanning the stars for signs of intelligent life, she'd developed a reputation for working unusual hours. Tonight was different, though. The signal patterns dancing across her screen were like nothing she'd ever seen. "Hey, Marcus, are you seeing this?" She called out to her colleague, Dr. Marcus Reynolds, who was dozing in the adjacent monitoring station. "The quantum frequency it's organized. Too organized to be natural." Marcus jolted awake, his chair squeaking as he rolled closer to her station. His eyes widened as he watched the patterns evolve. "That's impossible. The signal strength alone would require." His voice trailed off as the monitors throughout the facility began flickering in unison. The air in the center of the room shimmered, condensing into a hovering sphere of light that expanded into a holographic projection. The being that materialized stood nearly 8 feet tall, its iridescent scaled skin reflecting the emergency lights that had automatically activated. 4 arms were crossed in what appeared to be a gesture of authority, and its vertical slit pupils focused directly on Jessica. Representatives of Earth, the creature spoke in perfect English, its voice resonating with an otherworldly harmonic. "I am Ambassador Krithak of the Galactic Concordat. Your species has been observed and found wanting." Jessica's hand instinctively moved to the emergency alert button, but Marcus grabbed her wrist. "Wait," he whispered. "Let's hear them out." The hologram continued, unmoved by their reaction. "Humanity has demonstrated consistent patterns of violence, unpredictability, and dangerous technological advancement. The Concordat has voted. You will be integrated as a protectorate species, your development guided by those more suited to the responsibilities of spacefaring civilization." Major James Cooper of the U.S. Space Force arrived within minutes of the first alert, his uniform hastily donned. As he watched the recorded message for the 3rd time, something caught his trained eye. "Play it again," he ordered, focusing on the subtle distortions in the hologram's matrix. "Look at these patterns," he muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Their transmission technology. It's advanced, but it's predictable, almost like they're following a standardized protocol." He turned to Jessica. "Dr. Miller, how many variations are there in the signal space frequency?" 7, she replied, pulling up the data. "They repeat in a consistent sequence." Cooper's expression hardened, just like an encryption key. "They're not just sending a message, they're showing off their superiority. But they're also showing us their playbook." The UN Security Council convened an emergency session as dawn broke over New York. The Concordat's message played on screens worldwide, sending markets into freefall and causing widespread panic. But in the Pentagon's underground war room, Cooper was already briefing Joint Chiefs on his discoveries. "Their communication systems are incredibly sophisticated," he explained, pointing to the analysis on the main screen. "But they're also rigid, standardized across their entire civilization. No variation, no adaptation. They've been the dominant force in their space for so long, they'd forgotten the value of innovation." General Sarah Matthews, her face illuminated by the tactical displays, leaned forward. "You're saying we can exploit this?" "I'm saying they just handed us the key to their entire communications network," Cooper replied. "They're so convinced of their superiority, they didn't even bother to mask their basic protocols. It's all there in the hologram transmission." As if on cue, another hologram materialized in the center of the war room. Ambassador Krithak's image towered over them, demanding Earth's response within 24 hours. This time, though, the room's occupants didn't see an overwhelming show of force. They saw weaknesses, opportunities, and most importantly, hope. General Matthews stood, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's response. "Send our answer now. 2 words. Come. Try." In orbit, the first Concordat ships were already appearing, their massive forms eclipsing the stars. They expected submission. Instead, they were about to learn why humanity's warlike nature wasn't a weakness. It was their greatest strength. And Major Cooper's discovery was just the beginning of their education. Colonel Amanda Hayes stood before the holographic display in the Pentagon's Strategic Command Center, watching as another Concordat vessel materialized in Earth's orbit. The alien ships hung in space like chrome daggers, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly sheen that spoke of technology centuries beyond humanity's reach. But Hayes wasn't intimidated. She was intrigued. "Play the intercepted transmission again," she ordered, her eyes fixed on the data streaming across multiple screens. Lieutenant Ryan O'Connor, the youngest member of her cyber warfare team, nodded and input the command. Ambassador Krithak's voice filled the room once more, this time from an internal communication they'd managed to decrypt. "These primitives rely on binary computing systems and crude projectile weapons. Their ships still burn chemical fuel. Victory is assured." Hayes allowed herself a small smile. "There it is again. Did you catch it, O'Connor?" The lieutenant leaned forward, his fingers dancing across the holographic keyboard. The timing of their communications, it's perfectly synchronized. Every transmission, every command signal. His eyes widened. "They're running everything through centralized AI systems." "Exactly." Hayes brought up a new display, showing the pattern analysis they'd been running for the past 12 hours. Their entire military doctrine is built on artificial intelligence. No human element in their decision-making chain. Every response is programmed, predictable, perfect. She paused. "And that's their weakness." In the adjacent room, a team of the world's best hackers had been working nonstop, fueled by energy drinks and determination. Their screens showed the fruits of their labor, lines of code that merge Earth's most advanced cyber warfare techniques with the patterns they'd discovered in the Concordat's communications. O'Connor gestured to the main screen. "We've identified their core protocols. Their AI runs on quantum algorithms that are incredibly powerful, but they follow strict patterns. They've never had to defend against cyber attacks because all their member species use the same standardized systems." Hayes nodded, walking around the holographic display. They'd grown complacent. No major conflicts for thousands of years means no need to innovate, no need to protect against unconventional warfare. She turned to face her team. "We don't need to match their technology. We just need to break their rules." The door burst open as Major Cooper rushed in, clutching a datapad. "Colonel, you need to see this. We've finished analyzing their shield frequencies." He pulled up a new display, showing the energy patterns of the Concordat's defensive systems. Their shields are tuned to stop energy weapons, plasma, lasers, particle beams, but they have minimal protection against kinetic impacts. Because nobody in their part of the galaxy uses primitive projectile weapons anymore. Hayes finished, the pieces falling into place. They've optimized their defenses against their own technology, leaving them vulnerable to ours. O'Connor's team had already integrated this new information into their cyber warfare package. On their screens, a simulation showed how their virus could disrupt the alien ship's targeting systems, leaving them blind to incoming kinetic strikes. They called it Operation Blindside. "How long until it's ready?" Hayes asked, watching the simulation run through another successful test. 6 hours, O'Connor replied. "We've got their command protocols mapped. Once we're in their network, we can disable their targeting systems, disrupt their shield harmonics, maybe even turn some of their automated defense turrets against them." Hayes was about to respond when alarms blared throughout the facility. On the main screen, the Concordat fleet was moving into attack formation. Ambassador Krithak's face appeared on all channels, his expression smug. "Your time has expired," he announced. "Prepare for integration into the Concordat. Resistance will only increase the severity of your subjugation." Colonel Hayes straightened her uniform and faced her team. "Lieutenant O'Connor, you have 3 hours, not 6. Major Cooper, get me everything we have that can launch old-fashioned tungsten rods into orbit. The Concordat wants to see humanity's response." She smiled grimly. Let's show them why they should have feared our primitive technology. Above Earth, the Concordat fleet began their approach, their AI systems processing billions of calculations per second, accounting for every possible response in their database. But they weren't prepared for humanity's brand of warfare. They had no protocols for what was coming. And that was exactly what Hayes was counting on. Captain Emily Torres watched from the bridge of the U.S. Shadow Strike as the massive Concordat fleet descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Her experimental vessel, hidden beneath layers of advanced stealth technology, lay in wait among a field of orbital debris. The ship's systems were running silent, every non-essential function disabled to maintain their cover. Status on Operation Blindside. She whispered into her comm, though she knew the enemy couldn't hear them. Lieutenant O'Connor's voice crackled back, tense but controlled. Virus payload ready, waiting for the fleet to enter optimal broadcast range. Their AI networks are starting to sync up for the attack formation. The Concordat ships moved with perfect precision, their formations so exact they seemed to be guided by a single mind. In a way they were. Their unified AI combat systems coordinating every movement with mathematical perfection. 3 minutes to optimal range, O'Connor reported. Torres watched the tactical display as hundreds of smaller attack craft launched from the main Concordat vessels. They're deploying their fighter screen. Right on schedule. Colonel Hayes' voice cut in from Strategic Command. All units, maintain positions. Let them think they've caught us unprepared. The first wave of Concordat fighters began their descent, their energy weapons powering up with a distinctive purple glow. Above them, Ambassador Krithak's voice boomed across all frequencies. Witness the futility of resistance, he proclaimed. Our fighter craft alone possess enough firepower to. The transmission cut off mid-sentence as O'Connor's virus struck. The Concordat's perfectly synchronized fleet suddenly found their combat networks flooded with contradictory commands and false targeting data. Now, Torres ordered, all ships, execute Operation Hammerfall. From hidden positions around Earth's orbit, dozens of railgun platforms revealed themselves. They had been dismissed as space debris by the Concordat scans, their primitive projectile weapons deemed too obsolete to be a threat. That assumption proved fatal. The first salvo of tungsten rods, accelerated to near-relativistic speeds, tore through the Concordat's fighter screen like paper. Their energy shields, calibrated to deflect plasma and laser fire, might as well have been soap bubbles against the kinetic impacts. Multiple direct hits, Torres' tactical officer reported. Their shields are failing. On her command screen, Torres watched as Operation Blindside wreaked havoc across the enemy fleet. Concordat ships fired at phantom targets, their automated defense systems responding to false threats. Some vessels even turned their weapons on their own allies, their compromised AI unable to distinguish friend from foe. The U.S. Shadow Strike emerged from its hiding place, leading a squadron of Earth's most advanced spacecraft. They were few in number, but they had been built for this moment, designed to exploit every weakness O'Connor's team had discovered in the Concordat systems. Targeting their command ship, Torres announced, her hand steady on the controls. Let's show them what primitive technology can do. The Shadow Strike's main railgun fired, sending a specially designed penetrator round directly at the Concordat flagship's bridge. The round, carrying its own payload of electronic warfare equipment, punctured the vessel's weakened shields and buried itself deep in the command center. Across the battlefield, more Earth ships revealed themselves, launching waves of dumb missiles that the Concordat's sophisticated tracking systems struggled to target. Their electronic warfare suites, designed to handle elegant energy weapons, were useless against simple projectiles guided by basic internal gyroscopes. Their formation is breaking, Hayes reported from command. Push the advantage. Admiral William Baker's voice thundered across the fleet channel. All ships, press the attack. Show these arrogant bastards why humanity survived centuries of warfare. The Concordat fleet, for the first time in their 1,000-year history, began to retreat. Their perfect formations dissolved into chaos as ships tried to escape the unexpected onslaught. Ambassador Krithak's final transmission was cut short as another railgun round found its mark. Torres allowed herself a small smile as she watched the mighty Concordat fleet flee from Earth's primitive defenders. They had expected an easy victory over a backward species. Instead, they had learned a costly lesson. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their ability to turn any weakness into an advantage. "Signal to all ships," she ordered. "Begin pursuit." The Concordat wanted to see humanity's true nature. Her smile turned predatory. "Let's give them a demonstration they'll never forget." Marine Corps Captain Michael Davidson pressed his back against a crumbling concrete wall, breathing in the acrid smell of burning metal that filled downtown Seattle. Through the scope of his modified M4, he watched as a patrol of Concordat ground troops moved through the streets below, their crystalline armor gleaming in the early morning light. "Echo Team, status report," he whispered into his throat mic. "Charlie position. Ready," came Sergeant Lisa Martinez's reply. "Their patrol pattern hasn't changed. Same route, same timing, just like the last 3 passes." Davidson smiled grimly. The Concordat's rigid tactical doctrine that had failed them in space was proving just as ineffective on the ground. Their troops moved with mechanical precision, following predetermined paths optimized by their combat eye. "Bravo position. Ready," Lieutenant James Rodriguez reported from his sniper perch. "I count 12 tangos in the main group, 2 sensor drones overhead." The aliens had launched desperate ground assaults after their space fleet's humiliation, dropping troops into major cities worldwide. They expected to find chaos and disorganization. Instead, they found humanity had been preparing for urban warfare for centuries. "All units, execute Operation Pitfall," Davidson ordered. The trap was sprung with practiced precision. Rodriguez's first shot took out the sensor drones with specialized EMP rounds. Before the aliens could react, Martinez's team detonated carefully placed demolition charges, not to kill but to reshape the battlefield. Rubble cascaded down, blocking the Concordat troops' predetermined retreat paths. The aliens responded exactly as their combat simulations dictated, moving into a defensive formation and activating their energy shields. It was textbook perfect, and completely useless against what came next. Davidson's team emerged from multiple positions, using simple smoke grenades to blind the aliens' advanced optical sensors. Their crystalline armor, designed to deflect energy weapons, proved vulnerable to conventional hollow-point ammunition. The Concordat troops had no protocols for dealing with such primitive attacks. "They're trying to call for reinforcements," Rodriguez reported, picking off another alien soldier attempting to reach higher ground. "Same frequency as last time." Martinez's voice crackled with satisfaction. "Not happening. We're running the signal jammers we reverse-engineered from their own tech. They're cut off." The battle was over in minutes. When the smoke cleared, Davidson approached one of the fallen alien soldiers. The creature's 4 eyes stared at him in what might have been disbelief. "How?" It managed in heavily accented English. "Our combat algorithms. Perfect." "That's your problem," Davidson replied, kneeling beside the dying alien. "War isn't perfect. It's chaos, adaptation, and improvisation. Something your algorithms can't understand." Before the alien could respond, an explosion rocked the city. Davidson looked up to see a massive Concordat dropship descending toward their position, its hull bristling with weapons. "All units, scatter," he ordered. But Martinez had other ideas. She emerged from cover, carrying what looked like a modified RPG launcher. The weapon was a hybrid of human and alien technology, a captured Concordat power core rigged to launch conventional explosives. The dropship's AI targeted her instantly, but its tracking systems were calibrated for energy weapons. The crude projectile slipped through its defenses, detonating against the ship's gravity drive. The massive vessel spun out of control, crashing into an empty office building. "Command, this is Echo Leader," Davidson reported, watching the burning wreckage. Seattle Sector 4 is secured. Request permission to advance to Phase 2. Colonel Hayes' voice came back clear and confident. Permission granted, Captain. Similar reports coming in from London, Moscow, and Beijing. The Concordat's ground forces are retreating worldwide. As his team regrouped, Davidson picked up a piece of the alien's crystalline armor, studying its shattered surface. The Concordat had expected to find savages fighting with sticks and stones. Instead, they found an enemy that had turned urban combat into an art form. Mount up, he ordered his team. Command says they're massing for a counterattack in the industrial district. Let's show them what else we've learned from centuries of warfare. In the distance, more Concordat dropships were descending. But this time, there was no fear in the hearts of Earth's defenders. Every battle taught them more about their enemy's weaknesses, and humanity had always been very quick learners. Dr. Thomas Harrison wiped sweat from his brow as he stared at the holographic display floating above his workbench in Area 51's Advanced Research Division. Scattered around him were pieces of salvaged Concordat technology, power cores, weapon fragments, and the twisted remains of their quantum communication devices. Lieutenant Reynolds, run the simulation again, he called out to Sarah Reynolds, who stood beside a hybrid fighter prototype. The vessel looked like something born from a marriage of human stealth aircraft and alien technology, its sleek lines incorporating both Earth and Concordat design philosophies. Simulation running. Reynolds responded, her fingers dancing across the control panel. The prototype's engines hummed to life, emitting a distinctive blue glow that mixed with the familiar roar of human jet propulsion. Power output is stable at 130% of Concordat baseline. Harrison allowed himself a small smile. They never thought to overclock their quantum cores, too afraid of deviating from standard protocols. The breakthrough had come 3 days earlier when they discovered that Concordat technology was designed with enormous safety margins, limits that human engineers were more than happy to push. Where alien ships ran their power cores at exactly 70% capacity, Harrison's team had found ways to safely push them beyond their intended limits. "Package for you, Doctor," announced Major Rebecca Chen, entering the lab with a secured container. Fresh from the Seattle front, Captain Davidson's team captured an intact Concordat battle computer. Harrison's eyes lit up as he opened the container. The crystalline structure of the alien computer seemed to pulse with internal light. Perfect. This is exactly what we need for the neural interface testing. Reynolds approached, studying the alien device. Their battle computers are impressive, but they're slaves to their programming. No creativity, no adaptation. Which is why we're not just copying their technology, Harrison replied, connecting the battle computer to their hybrid systems. We're improving it. Humans have always excelled at taking existing tech and pushing it in new directions. The lab's main screen lit up with streams of alien code alongside human modifications. They weren't just translating the Concordat's programming. They were rewriting it, introducing elements of human unpredictability and tactical innovation. Final integration test beginning, Reynolds announced, climbing into the prototype's cockpit. The neural interface, a fusion of human wetware technology and Concordat quantum computing, activated with a soft hum. Neural link established. Response time is incredible. It's like the ship is part of my body. Harrison monitored the readings as Reynolds put the prototype through a series of virtual combat scenarios. The hybrid fighter moved in ways that defied both human and Concordat combat doctrine, combining alien technology's raw power with human intuition and creativity. Look at these maneuvers, Major Chen marveled, watching the test footage. The Concordat's targeting systems are calibrated for standard combat patterns. They'll never be able to track something that moves like this. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Colonel Hayes' voice came over the intercom. All personnel, battle stations, Concordat forces have launched a major counteroffensive. They're targeting our research facilities worldwide. Harrison turned to Reynolds. Lieutenant, how ready is the prototype? She was already sealing her flight suit, As ready as it'll ever be, Doctor. Permission to introduce our new hybrid to the Concordat. Permission granted, announced General Matthews, striding into the lab. Dr. Harrison, your team just became our ace in the hole. The Concordat thinks they've seen everything humanity can throw at them. She smiled grimly. Time to show them how wrong they are. Reynolds' prototype, designated Starcross, launched into the Nevada sky minutes later. Its hybrid drives leaving a trail that was neither fully human nor alien technology. Above, Concordat warships were descending through the atmosphere, their sensors detecting the lone fighter rising to meet them. Their battle computers calculated a 100% chance of victory against a single Earth vessel. But their calculations, like all their assumptions about humanity, were about to be proven devastatingly wrong. Starcross engaging, Reynolds reported calmly, as her hybrid fighter moved in ways that made mockery of both physics and Concordat combat protocols. Let's show them what happens when human creativity meets alien tech. General Kevin Anderson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Retribution, Earth's first hybrid tech carrier, watching as his fleet prepared for Operation Thunderbolt. The massive vessel represented everything humanity had learned in their war against the Concordat, its hull bristling with both railguns and modified alien energy weapons. All strike groups report ready, sir, Commander Rachel Thompson announced from her tactical station. Her hands moved across a console that merged holographic Concordat displays with traditional human controls. Lieutenant Reynolds' Starcross Squadron is in position for the first wave. Anderson nodded, his expression stern. Begin the jump sequence. Let's show them what these modified drives can do. The Concordat had believed their quantum jump technology was perfect, impossible to improve upon. They hadn't counted on human engineers asking, what if we overcharge it? The result was about to revolutionize space warfare. Executing micro-jumps in 3, 2, 1. Thompson's fingers danced across her console. The fleet didn't just jump. It blinked in and out of reality in rapid succession, creating a strobing effect that the Concordat's targeting systems couldn't track. Each ship appeared and disappeared in microsecond intervals, moving closer to their targets with each jump. Inside the lead Concordat defense station orbiting their core worlds, alarms blared as their sensors tried to make sense of the impossible readings. Their battle computers, designed for conventional space combat, began to crash under the strain of tracking multiple ships appearing and disappearing faster than their protocols could process. First wave, you are cleared hot, Anderson commanded. Show them what humanity can do with their own toys. Lieutenant Reynolds led her squadron of hybrid fighters through the chaos. The Starcross units moved with impossible grace, their human pilots channeling intuition and creativity through neural interfaces that the Concordat had never imagined possible. Target locked, Reynolds reported, her voice calm despite pulling maneuvers that would have torn apart a conventional fighter. Firing hybrid payload. The weapons that launched from her squadron combined human and alien technology in ways that defied conventional defense. Railgun rounds wrapped in quantum fields phased through energy shields, while modified plasma torpedoes followed unpredictable attack patterns that no eye could anticipate. Direct hits across all targets, Thompson reported, allowing herself a small smile. Their defense grid is destabilizing. They have no protocol for this kind of attack. Anderson watched as the mighty Concordat defenses, believed impregnable for millennia, began to crumble under humanity's assault. Launch second wave. All ships, commence Operation Shattered Mirror. The human fleet split into smaller battle groups, each executing their own series of micro-jumps. To the Concordat sensors, it must have looked like they were fighting ghosts. Vessels that appeared, struck, and vanished before their automated defenses could respond. Sir, Thompson called out, we're detecting multiple power signatures from the surface. They're activating their planetary defense system. Massive cannons rose from the Concordat world's surface, their energy readings off the charts. But Anderson just smiled. Right on schedule. Commander Thompson, execute the special package. Thompson activated a sequence they'd developed by studying captured Concordat code. The aliens had standardized their entire defense network, making it incredibly efficient and incredibly vulnerable. The virus they'd prepared slipped through the quantum communication channels, turning the planetary defenses against their own orbital facilities. Amazing what happens when you actually read the user manual, Anderson mused, watching as the Concordat's own weapons began targeting their ships. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple facilities," Thompson reported. "Their command structure is collapsing." Anderson straightened his uniform. "Send our reply. These are our terms: unconditional surrender and a complete revision of the Concordat's policies toward primitive species." As his fleet secured their positions around the Concordat world, Anderson reflected on how far they'd come. The aliens had threatened Earth thinking they faced simple savages. Instead, they found the one thing their perfect society couldn't handle: a species that thrived on breaking rules and pushing boundaries. "Begin landing operations," he ordered. "Let's introduce them to some real human diplomacy." The Retribution's hybrid drives hummed as they moved into orbit, its very existence a testament to humanity's greatest strength, the ability to take an enemy's greatest weapons and make them even better. Ambassador Mark Sullivan had never imagined he'd be standing in the legendary halls of Unity on the Concordat's capital world. The vast chamber, with its crystalline spires and floating platforms, had hosted the galaxy's most powerful species for millennia. Now it was hosting its first human diplomatic mission, though diplomatic might have been a generous term, given the fleet of hybrid warships in orbit above. "The terms are non-negotiable," Sullivan stated, his voice carrying across the chamber to the assembled alien representatives. "The age of Concordat supremacy is over." Vice Admiral Jennifer Brooks stood beside him, her uniform bearing the newly created insignia of Earth's Space Force, combined with elements of captured Concordat designs. The symbolism wasn't subtle. Humanity hadn't just beaten the aliens, they'd mastered their technology. "You cannot simply demand," began First Speaker Xalfos, his scaled skin flushing with anger. "We can, and we are," Brooks interrupted, activating a holographic display. "Would you like to see the tactical analysis of how long your remaining forces would last against our hybrid fleet? Our analysts suggest less than 6 hours." The chamber erupted in murmurs as various species representatives conferred with their allies. Sullivan watched with interest as patterns emerged. The younger races seemed more open to human demands, while the ancient founding members bristled at the very concept of change. "The Zakari delegation requests recognition," announced a tall, ethereal being with silvery skin. Ambassador Lyra of the Zakari stepped forward, her movement graceful despite her species' notorious hatred of gravity-bound environments. "For 10,000 cycles, we have watched the Concordat stagnate," Lyra began. "We Zakari joined only because we saw no alternative. But humanity has proven there is another way. We support their demands for reform." Sullivan smiled inwardly. The Zakari had been the first to secretly reach out after humanity's initial victories, impressed by Earth's rapid technological adaptation. Now they were the first to publicly break ranks. "The Nexus Collective joins the Zakari position," added another representative, their holographic form shimming with data streams. "Humanity's innovations in quantum computing alone justify their demand for equal status." First Speaker Xalfos raised all 4 arms for silence. "You forget the Concordat's purpose. We maintain order, structure, without our guidance." "Your guidance," Brooks laughed. "Your perfect systems were broken by what you called primitives. Your standardized protocols became your greatest weakness. The galaxy doesn't need a parent, it needs innovation." The chamber's tension was interrupted by urgent messages reaching multiple delegations. Sullivan watched as the color drained from Xalfos's face. "Several hardline factions are attempting to access restricted weapons facilities," the first speaker announced grimly. "They seek to unleash the forbidden technologies rather than accept change." Sullivan exchanged a glance with Brooks. They'd anticipated this possibility. Vice Admiral, if you would. Brooks activated her neural link to the fleet. Execute Operation Lockdown. Above every major Concordat world, human hybrid ships executed precisely calculated microjumps. Networks of quantum satellites, designed by Dr. Harrison's team, activated in perfect sequence. Within minutes, every restricted weapons facility was cut off from outside access. Did you think we spent these months studying only your military technology? Sullivan asked the stunned assembly. We mapped your entire defense grid. Those facilities are now under Earth's protection, to ensure they're never used by anyone. The demonstration had its intended effect. More delegations began announcing their support for human-led reforms. The Concordat was fracturing, but not into chaos. It was reorganizing itself around a new paradigm. A vote is called, Lyra announced, her silver eyes gleaming. The motion. Full recognition of Earth as an equal partner in a reformed Concordat, with guaranteed seats on a new governing council. As the votes were tallied, Sullivan reflected on humanity's journey. They had been dragged into an interstellar society at gunpoint, expected to submit and obey. Instead, they had proven that true civilization wasn't about maintaining perfect order. It was about embracing change and innovation. The motion carries, Exalfos declared, his voice heavy with resignation. Welcome, humanity, to a new era of galactic civilization. Sullivan smiled. The real work was just beginning. No, first speaker. Welcome to humanity's way of doing things. Trust me, it's going to be an interesting ride. Dr. Jessica Miller stood at the observation deck of Harmony Station, the newly constructed headquarters of the reformed Concordat, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon. The massive space station represented everything humanity had achieved in the past year, a perfect fusion of human ingenuity and alien technology. Quite a view, isn't it? Admiral Emily Torres, formerly captain of the Shadow Strike, now commander of the Joint Defense Force, joined her at the window. Hard to believe a year ago, we were preparing for what we thought would be our last stand. Miller smiled, remembering that first threatening transmission in her lab. They came expecting to find savages. Instead, they found equals who just needed a little motivation to catch up. The station's central chamber below them bustled with activity as delegates from across the galaxy prepared for the first session of the new Concordat Council. Humans worked alongside aliens at every level, their different approaches to problems creating solutions neither side would have discovered alone. Ambassador Sullivan's ready for you. Lieutenant Reynolds appeared, her neural interface glowing softly. The technology had been refined and standardized, allowing for seamless integration between human intuition and alien quantum systems. The Zakari delegation is particularly interested in your presentation on cross-species communication protocols. Miller gathered her notes on her holographic tablet. Another hybrid innovation. Her research team had spent months studying how different species processed information, leading to breakthroughs in interstellar diplomacy that the old Concordat had never considered possible. The main council chamber was a marvel of engineering. Designed by a joint team led by Dr. Harrison, it accommodated every known species' environmental needs while facilitating clear communication between all parties. The old rigid hierarchy was gone, replaced by a true forum of equals. Delegates of the reformed Concordat. Sullivan began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement field. 1 year ago, humanity was deemed too primitive for membership in galactic society. Today, we gather to share what we've learned from each other. Miller took her place at the presentation podium, looking out at the assembled representatives. Former enemies sat alongside new allies, all united by the recognition that diversity of thought and approach was a strength, not a weakness. The old Concordat sought perfection through uniformity, she began, but we've proven that true advancement comes from embracing different perspectives. Our hybrid technologies are just the beginning. Screens displayed the latest innovations, ships that combined human tactical flexibility with Concordat quantum drives, medical techniques that merged Zachary energy healing with human surgical precision, and communication systems that incorporated multiple species' natural advantages. First speaker Lyra of the Zachary, who had replaced Axalphos after the reforms, raised her hand. And what of the hardline factions that still resist these changes? Admiral Torres stepped forward. The Joint Defense Force maintains its watch over restricted weapons facilities, but more importantly, our success has proven them wrong. Every month, more worlds petition to join the reformed Concordat. Because we offer something the old Concordat never did, Sullivan added. The freedom to innovate, to question, to improve. We don't demand submission to a single way of thinking. Miller watched as her presentation showed the latest statistics. Trade was up, scientific breakthroughs had increased exponentially, and conflicts had decreased as species learned to complement each other's strengths rather than compete. A year ago, we fought for our right to exist, she concluded. Today, we fight for something greater. The right of all species to reach their full potential, not through rigid adherence to tradition, but through the freedom to grow and change. As applause filled the chamber, Miller returned to the observation deck. Earth still hung in the view, but now it was joined by ships of all designs. Human, Concordat, hybrid, and entirely new configurations born from their combined knowledge. Ready for the reception? Reynolds asked, joining her. The Nexus Collective wants to discuss your theories on quantum consciousness. Miller nodded, taking one last look at the view. The Concordat had tried to force humanity to submit, to stay in their assigned place in the galaxy. Instead, they had learned a crucial lesson. True civilization wasn't about controlling the chaos of diversity. It was about harnessing it to reach new heights together. Let's go show them what else humanity can contribute to the galaxy, she said, turning toward humanity's future among the stars.